In the previous video, we got our calculator interface completed. So that's already up and going and we tested it in the emulator. But of course, we haven't implemented any functionality. In other words, when we click on the buttons, as you can see here on the screen, nothing actually happens. While it does accept the input, we actually have to add the code so that we can tell the application what to do when those buttons are clicked. So that's what we're going to start doing in this video. So I'm going to swing back into Android Studio. And what we're going to do is go back to the actual code now. We're going to go back to our main activity class and start putting some code in there. So I'm going to go into the Java folder and go into main activity, double click on that. So what we need to do is add some fields. So I'm going to create one or create two by typing private edit text operand 1. That's going to be the first field on the screen. And notice as I was typing edit text, it automatically added it as an import at the top of the screen, and that's because we actually defined unambiguous imports to be automatically added by Android Studio. It just saved us having to do an extra bit of typing. Operand 2. So that those two fields are going to equate to this one. Operand 1 will be the first one. Operand 2 will actually be the second one, the next one on the screen there, as you can see. So then, as we've done in previous apps, we then need to go to our onCreate method. Then we need to actually associate the actual name that we've defined in the main activity, operand 1 in this case, to the actual field in the XML layout. So the way we do that, which we've seen previously, is operand 1 equals, we have to tell it the type of view. In this case, it's an edit text, and that matches up to what's in the layout file. And it's going to be find view by ID, r.id. And we can select edit text, which was the name of the first one, like so. Now the thing is, looking at that edit text, it's not really very descriptive, is it? It doesn't really tell us what it is. When you're actually programming, it's actually good practice to be as descriptive as possible, particularly when naming objects. So we actually define up here operand 1, which tells us it's the first field with the data in it. That's good, but edit text is pretty generic and in fact was a name that was automatically created by Android Studio. So I think what we should do is actually change that and go back into the layout and actually change that, and then just so it makes a little bit more sense, and then we can actually come back here and change it in here as well so they can be associated. So we're going to go back into activity_main. So what we can do, there's a couple of ways of doing it. Again, you recall that in a previous video we can just double click one. So I'm clicking on the first one. I'm going to leave the text blank, but I'm going to change this. And when you're actually developing layouts in Android Studio, it can often be a good idea to prefix the name with the first 3 or 4 characters relating to what the type of view is. Now you've seen me do that in the past where I've used BTN as an abbreviation for button. So what I'm going to do here is leave it as the word edit. And you can actually see that Android Studio has actually done that as well. It's actually used the word edit, then added the word text for this particular field. So I'm going to call this one edit operand 1, like so. And notice that when I did that straight away up here, that got changed, and it's now operand 1. And likewise, I could select it that way if I wanted to. I could also come down here if I wanted to actually do ID that way. There's multiple ways that we can access it. Edit operand 2 and update it like that. And of course, the other thing we could have done, we could have come back into here and actually entered it as well. We could have actually gone into there and actually changed it there or there for operand 1 or 2. There's multiple ways of doing the same thing. So that's the two names. So if we go back to our main activity again now. Now what we should have is an error here, and we may actually have to compile to see the error because it's not showing it at the moment. But that edit text now needs to be changed because of course we've just changed the name. So I'm going to go back and type dot, and it's still showing us edit text, because that no longer exists. But if we come down here now and type edit operand 1 or select edit operand 1, that'll enable us to actually get it working. And I think if we did a rebuild, to build and make project, if we did that, you'd probably find that we won't be able to select edit text anymore because it will no longer exist. So we type dot edit text. Now edit text has now disappeared. So if you are not seeing a change immediately, you may have to rebuild the project as I just did, or just use the new name. And the next time you compile your project, it will actually disappear. So that's the first operand associated. But of course, we need to do both of them. So I'm going to copy and paste the code and just change operand 1 to operand 2 on the second line and associate that with edit operand 2 as well. Now, incidentally, you might be wondering where do these IDs come from? And these, anything with R dot, the R dot is a class that's generated automatically by Android Studio. So that's not something you need to actually ever edit. But each time a field is actually added, on a layout, in the XML layout, it's assigned a unique ID. So by putting this r.id and then the name, internally what happens is Android Studio associates that automatically. So that's what's happening there. So from your point of view, you don't really need to know too much about what's happening behind the scenes. All you really need to do here for this find view by ID method is make sure you're matching the edit operand 1 name with the name that we've defined up here for the name as the ID for a particular view. Okay, so we've now done those two operands, but of course the other thing we now need to do, we need to associate the buttons. That's the addition, the subtraction, the division, and the multiply. And the reason we need to do that, of course, is we need to be able to add some code so that when they're clicked, we can actually do some processing on the operands. So we're going to come up here again and actually add some buttons. Type private button, and I'm going to call the first one button plus. Actually, what we'll do is we'll call it button addition because addition is probably more correct. Private button, button subtraction. Private button, button division. Private button, button multiplication. Like so. So that's the 4 buttons, and we'll need to go back into our layout and change those names shortly. And lastly, what we now need is an association with the text view for the result, because we need to update the interface, the screen, with actually the result of actually processing the 2 operands. So that's a text view. So we're going to create one private text view, and we'll call that one text result. So TXT, abbreviation for text. So what we then want to do after we've done that, of course, we need to go back to our layout and actually make those changes. So we go into there, and I'm going to go and just show you how to do it in the text mode this time. So the first one, so I'm doing it in order. We know that the first one was a button for addition, so I'm going to type button addition, button subtraction, we had button division, and lastly button multiplication. Like so. And the last thing we want to do is change the text view. And of course, there's 2 text views here. The first one is the result. That's just a heading. It's just a heading only. So we're not going to change that one. The one that we want to actually associate the result with is this second one, because that's the one with the actual amount. So I'm going to type TXT result there. And then the other thing here is, if you recall, we talked earlier about setting this up so that we could actually use this in different languages. So I'm going to actually do that as well for this one. I'm going to extract the string resource. I'm just going to call it result description, so that we're correctly putting the entry in the strings.xml file that I showed you we talked about previously. All right, so we've made those changes. So if you come back here now to main activity, what we should now be able to do is associate these 5 fields that we've added to this class. So we're going to start with the addition. Button addition equals, and that's a button, find view by ID, r.id dot be button addition, button subtraction equals button. Actually, what I'll do just to save a bit of time, probably should have done that beforehand. That'll 5. You can type it manually if you want, but I always try and do shortcuts if I can, just to save a bit of time. Button subtraction. Then we had button division, button multiplication, and the last one was the text result. And I'll just come back and change these. This is going to be a text view, the last one, and of course that will be text result, and it'll be button multiplication, a few more to do now, button division, and then the last one, button subtraction. So there we go. So we've now created a field in this class for the 2 operands, for the 4 buttons, and for the result. Then what we've done also then is associated those with the actual field that we created in the Java class, and we've linked them to the actual fields that are in the layout file itself. And consequently, that we'll then be able to add some code to the buttons, but also extract the values or set the values in the text result field as well, and grab the values out of the operands. So of course we can actually do some processing. Now, if you remember in the previous application, we used a listener. We talked about listeners, and that was the concept of setting a listener so that when that button is clicked, again back on this screen on our emulator, so what we're trying to do is so when this button is actually clicked, either of those buttons are clicked, we want some code to be associated. So what we want to happen is in the case of the plus button being clicked, we want the two values to be added together. In the subtraction button, if that's clicked, we want the first operand to have the second operand deducted from it. Third case division, and so on and so forth with multiplication. So what we need to do is add a listener to each of those buttons and then perform the appropriate action on each of them. So let's start off by actually creating the listener for the very first one. And the first one, of course, is going to be the add. So I'm going to go back to the Android Studio. We're going to add our listeners here. We're going to type button addition dot set on click listener new view dot, and remember when I started typing view, before I even got to the stage of having a dot, it's come up with that code automatically on the screen. And if I just press enter now, give it a second, it then adds that code for us automatically. So it's added all the necessary infrastructure code to handle that click. We didn't need to do any of that. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to actually grab the two values out of the operands. Obviously, we can't add the two items together until such time as we've grabbed it and we figured out what the value currently is in the two operands that are on the screen. So the way we do that, you type double, we'll call it operand 1, equals, so I won't call it operand 1 because we're already using that could cause some confusion. So I'm going to abbreviate that and just put oper 1 equals double dot parse double, and I'm going to type operand 1, which is the edit text that we've defined above, which is what's the value that's ultimately going to be coming from the screen, dot get text dot to string, like so. So what that's doing is it's actually having a look and grabbing the value that's currently stored on screen, converting that to a string, and then what it's doing is using this double.parseDouble function, this method, and its purpose is to convert it to a number, in other words, so that we can actually start processing it. Because obviously we need a number to be stored in numeric format to be able to do some processing on it. So that's the first operand. The second one, we can do a similar thing. We just define a separate variable called oper2. And of course, the only difference there is we're going to be selecting operand 2 in that case. So at this point, we've now got our values. And really all we need to do now is add them together because we're using the setting the on-click listener for the addition button. We need to add the two together. So to do that, we create another variable called double. And we'll call it the result. And it's going to be oper 1 plus oper 2. Pretty simple. So now that we've done that, the last thing we now need to do is put the value of that operation back on screen in our text result field. And that's actually quite simple to do. We just type text result.setText. Then we passed double.toString the result. That's literally it. So what that line of text is doing, firstly, text result is the field that we've defined to link to the result on screen so that we can actually show the result of our addition. .setText updates the value that's showing on the screen, and double.toString, what that's doing is converting the numeric value that's currently in the result variable and actually converting that to a string. And the reason we need to do that is when we're actually adding something on the screen, it has to be in a string format or a text format. So that's literally it. So at this point now, we should be able to run this, at least for the button that handles addition, and that should now work. So let's go and try that. So I'm going to run this. Okay, time to start. We should tab over there now because it looks like it started. Okay, so what we should now be able to do is type two numbers. So I type 6.50 plus 6.25. We should be getting 12.75. Click on plus, the result 12 plus 12.75. So that's working. We could try another number like much larger number. And tab doesn't work here, by the way. I'm trying to press tab because I'm used to doing that, but it doesn't work because we're in an emulator. $126.78. Click on plus, and we're getting the result. So clearly that result is working, which is fantastic. So all we need to do now is actually add the code doing a similar thing for the remaining three functions, which of course is the subtraction, the division, and the multiplication. So I'll quickly do those now because they won't take long. Give it a quick test and then we'll finish this video. So I'm going to do something similar. So again, you could to go in and do the method that use the method that I did to create the listener, or we can actually do a shortcut. We can copy it and we can just paste the changes. So in this case, we're going to do the subtraction button. I'm going to make that subtraction. So it's the same thing there. Actually, I put that in the wrong place. So what I should have done was actually, I'll copy that out. I pasted it too far in. It should have actually been here, directly below. It was still within the onCreate method. I'm going to paste it in there. And this time, you can see the code is very similar. So I've changed the name of the field to button subtraction. So the same principle of getting the values is going to be identical. We don't need to change that at all. The only thing we really need to do is change the actual operation. In this case, it's going to be minus. So we're going to do that. And let's go and do that again now. Do that for the division. And the only thing we really need to do there is division. Then the last one. Oops. Copy the whole field. And then, of course, the last one's going to be multiplication. Paste that in. Multiplication. And the type of operation, the operator is going to be multiplication. We've got an error here. So I'm going to actually delete one of those. So I think that's what the problem is. Delete that there. That should actually fix that. Introduce that error by mistake when I was pasting the code in before. So what we've now done is we've got 4. We've got our same the code that's pretty well identical, other than the fact that we're actually doing either an addition, as you can see there. We're doing subtraction. We're doing division. Or finally, we're doing a multiplication. So let's quickly test those out now, and just to make sure that they're actually working. So what we'll do is we'll run this. Click OK. I'll tab over and wait till it updates, as you can see. Okay, so let's try a few values. We'll just keep it pretty basic. We'll start with 100 and we'll at 50. Well, plus we know it worked before, so that's 150. Minus 100 take 50 should give us the answer of 50. So we've got 50. 100 divided by 50 should give us the answer of 2. That's correct. And lastly, 100 times 50 should be 5,000. We've got 5,000. So there you go. We've got our 4 values, our 4 buttons, I should say, actually working. And we've got the result happening as well. So it's all starting to look good. But we've actually got a couple of things that we need to correct, because we've got a situation here which, let's just say we delete some values out of there and click on plus. We actually get an error. And the reason that we're getting an error is that there's no values in there, and we haven't tried to check to see that there's no values. So we're going to have a look at validating the data and making sure that we stop the actual app from crashing.